Okay, now we're at the finishing part and we need to turn up a hem on the bottom of the skirt. The easiest way to do it is if you can grasp it between your thumb and your first finger and just flip the edge of the fabric. Then you can use your first finger to kind of control the width of the hem as you roll, and then you follow it along with your iron and you can just go ahead and press it in. The more that you do, the better you'll get at gauging how far the hem is without really having to pin it all in. It takes a lot of time to do that. Also, you can get one of these really handy little tools at the sewing store, and they're only a few dollars, and it's called a sewing gauge. Some people actually, you can attach it to your sewing machine. But I like to use mine free for doing hems and checking, make sure I've got the right seam allowance and stuff. This little slider will move, so you can adjust it to wherever you need. And then as you're pressing your hem in, it's just really easy to just lay it up and check and make sure that you've got the right depth. What we're going to do is we're going to press up 1/4 inch first, and we'll do that with our iron. And then we are going to, after we press that up, it's really up to you on how deep you want the hem. If you'd like to just go ahead and roll another 1/4 inch, you can do that. Or if you'd like it a little bit shorter, it's really cute if you can put like a 1 inch or 3/4 inch past your original 1/4 inch. So you can do 1/4 and 1/4, that's called a narrow hem, or you could do 1/4 and like 3/4 or 1 inch, and that's really cute too on the bottom. So that design is totally up to you. Okay, I'm going to press in this hem, and then I'm going to just sew it on the machine in a straight stitch. When you get to these edges where you've joined the fabric together, make sure that it's laying the right way and you don't press it in and have it turn or twist. So double check it on the top and make sure that this is the way that it's supposed to lay when you put your hem in. Okay? Okay, we've gotten our hem in, and I used a 3/4 of an inch little hem because I thought it was really cute, so I did that. And just make sure you go back and press it again flat, because pressing is what is the difference between a garment looking handmade and homemade versus really looking professional. The more you press, the better your garments will come out. Okay, we talked about in the beginning adding this little feature to the side, which is kind of like a little gathering part over the sleeve, a little cap on the top of the sleeve. Now, with the pattern, the Buttrick pattern, this piece is actually added in between the seam. Now, because we did a lining on this, which is not part of the original Buttrick pattern, it would make it a little bit different for this. And plus, I'm going to add this underneath because I want it to have a layered look. You can put this in when you do the seam with your lining and your outside fabric, and I'll go back and make another one and show you how to do that, actually put this in with the seam. But for today, I wanted it to be a little bit more simple, and I wanted to have that layered look like there's another shirt underneath it, which is kind of really popular right now. So I'm going to add it underneath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece, and I'll fold it out just so you can kind of see what it looks like. It's kind of like a big oval, kind of like a leaf shape. You can see the fold down the middle of it. It was cut on the fold. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it wrong sides together, which isn't normal, but wrong sides together. And I'm going to match up the edges, and then I'm going to go ahead and stitch 5/8 of an inch away from the edge. I'm just going to go ahead and run a regular stitch all the way down to the other point. And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do my overcast or my zigzag or serge as close as I can get to that regular stitch, and I'm just going to go ahead and finish off this edge so that it doesn't ravel. So I'll go do that, and then we'll come back and talk about how to attach it to the dress. Okay, here I have, you can see I ran my stitch and I finished off my edge. Then I also came and ran a gathering stitch about 1/8 of an inch in from my normal stitch. I anchored one side, which means you stitch and then you back stitch and then you go ahead and run your gather, and that's, or you could just leave the tails and tie them in a knot if you wanted to do that. And then just run your gather stitch, longest stitch length on your machine. I ran it all the way down, and then I left the tails on one side so that I could pull one thread and then kind of gather it up a little bit. Now we're going to go back to the bodice here, and what we're going to do is we're going to fold it on the shoulder, and we're going to match up the edges here so that it's laying the right way. There we go. And you can see where the top of the shoulder, if you were to draw a straight line, would come down and where it would actually start the curve for the underarm part. I measured it on the other side, and it's about 4 inches on this dress. You can just kind of lay your tape, and you can see if you were to lay it at the top where it would actually start the curve at. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark that with my little bit of chalk or whatever you want to use to mark. Chalk will wash out. You can use a pencil, but it has to be a soft lead, and I would mark on the inside because sometimes it won't wash out. So on this side you can see where I've went ahead and I've pulled up the gather, and I've taken the middle and matched it to the shoulder seam. And then I have just went ahead and I just pinned so that the gather just starts to lay at the edge. You can see there. Okay, now I'll go back and I'm going to stitch about 2/8 of an inch in, maybe 1. It just depends on what I think I'm going to like when I get to my sewing machine. And I'm just going to stitch it real close, and I'm just going to go ahead and stitch that right on the top there. Okay, as you can see, I decided on 1/8 of an inch seam allowance as I'm sewing this little top of the sleeve on. And as I'm going, I'm just making sure I'm kind of pulling back the fabric just a slight bit and making sure that that gathering stitch is just inside of the bodice part, so that when I get it off, I want to make sure I don't have a place where it came way in and then way out or something, so that this is really even. Okay, so now the front of the whole little top is done, and we are back at the back, and we're going to do the placement for the buttons. Now, buttons are really not that hard at all. What I did is I put, it's easier to use the button to lay out your buttonholes. And I just laid this first button down, and you can see I have an equal distance between the top and the side. So I just laid my button down where I wanted it, and then I just kind of spaced out my other buttons. I had 4. And then I used my little ruler here to make sure that they were each equal distance apart, and measure from the center of the button. Don't try to measure in between and then try to measure the button, and that's just a mess. So just always use the center of the buttons as your placement. And then I just made a little mark underneath the buttons to tell me where I'm going to put my buttonhole at. The buttonhole goes in the top layer and the button goes in the bottom layer. So then I'm going to go to my machine. If you want to, you can draw a line to show how long your button is. You draw the line, and then to show the end you would just make a little mark so it looks kind of like a sideways eye there. Make a little mark to show where you're going to start and where you're going to stop. Just make sure that the marks are the same distance from the edge, so you don't have one button over here and one button over here, so that they're all nice and even and lined up. Okay, I'm going to go put my buttonholes in. Then after you've done your buttonhole, just go ahead and cut it, and then just use a little marker, a little mark, fold this over, line up the buttonholes, line up the edge where it's going to be, and then just make a little mark, and then you know the placement for your buttons. Okay, I'm going to go do that, and then we will look at the front.